Friday, everyone. Allan here, coming to you from OTG. Hope you have big plans for the weekend as always. Now, today's going to be the third and final part of the video series on mindset. So if you haven't already, go ahead and watch the first two videos so that way this video is going to make a lot more sense and you'll be a lot more prepared for the activities that I'm going to have you do to help change your limiting beliefs into liberating truths. Now, as I discussed in the first two videos, the first step to changing your limiting beliefs is to first recognize that your mindset has a lot of power in helping you achieve your goals, because with the proper mindset, you can end up taking the proper actions towards achieving your goals. So it's very important that you do believe and you do understand the power that mindset has. There are a ton of psychological studies on it. If you'd like to reach out to me, I can go ahead and send you links to those. Now, the second step, which was discussed in last week's videos, is to recognize the limiting beliefs that you already have. That's going to give us a good starting point for today's video, where I'm going to go into detail about the 6 steps that you need to take to change your limiting beliefs into liberating truths. Now, the first step is to recognize your limiting beliefs, and if you watched last week's video, you already have a head start on that, so go ahead and take a few minutes to recognize any limiting beliefs that you might have that could be holding you back from achieving your goals. Now, the second step is to record this limiting belief. So go ahead and grab a pen, a pencil, and a piece of paper to write it down. You could also type it into your computer, but when you write it down, it works a little bit differently in your mind and helps you externalize it a little bit more easily. So I definitely recommend actually writing it down on a sheet of paper. This is going to help you externalize it, view it from a different perspective, and your limiting belief might be something like, I never finish things, or I'm not good at this, that type of thing. So go ahead and write down any that come to mind. Now, the third step is to review the belief. Is it holding you back? Is it empowering you at all? Does it actually describe you as a person? So if you wrote down, I completely suck at this, or I never finish anything, think of times where you have finished something, or things that you're actually good at, or a time that you actually did well at the thing you think you're not very good at. So go ahead and review the belief, really think about it, think about how it affects your goals, how it affects your life, and if it's actually holding you back. Now, the fourth step is to reject or reframe the belief. Now, because you thought about it, does it describe you as a person? It allows you to more easily contradict the belief. So as I mentioned in the third step, try to find a time where you actually succeeded or you actually proved the belief wrong. This will help you reframe it or change it. Now, if you wrote down, I never finish anything, you can go ahead and reframe it to oftentimes I lose motivation on things, or oftentimes I lose interest, but it's not always. It's not that black and white thinking where you're always doing something. It's just certain times, and then try to think about why you think you give up on that thing, or why you think you're not good at it. If you don't think you're good at something, it might be who you're comparing yourself to. If you're comparing yourself to professionals who have been doing it for years and years, then you're not really judging yourself fairly. Think about somebody else who's been doing it as long as you, and maybe you're not as good as somebody who's been doing it 20 years, but maybe you're more in line with somebody who's been doing it as long as you have. So go ahead and reframe, reject the belief. If you don't think you're good at something, you can always change it to, I'm not that good at it yet, or I can become better at this thing. Now, the fifth step, which is key, is to revise the limiting belief. So beside your limiting belief, which I hope you wrote down, go ahead and write your new liberating truth. Now, in the previous step, the fourth step, we thought about it a little bit more in depth, tried to get to the core of why we believe that sort of thing. So now for the fifth step, I want you to go ahead and write a new liberating truth that corresponds to that old limiting belief. Now, for example, if you think you're too old for a particular job, instead, right next to it, go ahead and write, I have more experience than younger applicants. So the key here is to go ahead and find positive aspects and focus on those things that you can actually develop and grow upon, instead of things that you can't really change, or things that you're exaggerating in a way that aren't necessarily true. Because if you think you're too old for something, I'm gonna go ahead and say 99% of the time, that's not necessarily what's holding you back. And in the previous videos, I gave great examples on how that's not always the case. So go ahead and focus on positive aspects. Try to find the benefits of your current position and how that benefits you. Another example, if you think you're too young for a job, well, you might be young, but You might be harder working, you might have less responsibilities, you might have more drive, more ambition. So that's definitely a strength that you can focus on. So try to find those positive aspects, reframe that limiting belief, revise it, and then go ahead and write that down. Now, the sixth and final step is to reorient yourself to the new belief. If you wrote it down, but you really don't do anything about it, it's not gonna make a difference. So for the sixth step, you need to reorient your mindset and start committing to that new liberating truth as if it were true. Now, this might feel a little bit awkward at first. It's like wearing a shirt that's too big, kind of have to grow into it, fit into it. That's okay if it feels a little bit awkward, but as you continue to believe your new liberating truth, your actions are gonna start to reflect it. So for example, if you thought you were too old for a job, you might start realizing how you actually have a lot more experience than younger applicants, and you might think of ways where you can actually apply that to your job and real world situations where it actually gives you an advantage, and you can start developing that and growing upon that, and it's gonna help you achieve your goals much more easily than if you got stuck with the limiting beliefs. And as a side note, the limiting belief might kind of creep in from time to time, especially when things aren't going too well. You might want to give up. Now, the last thing you want to do is give up. Keep reframing your mindset, keep believing in that new liberating truth, and eventually your expectations will start to manifest into actions which will shape that liberating truth into reality, which will obviously help you get that much closer to achieving your goals. Now, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to go into more detail about any of these ideas. I did major in psychology, so I do have a background when it comes to mindset and limiting beliefs and how that can actually impair you in the external and the real world. So definitely feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. I'd also like to give a shout out to the author of the book, Your Greatest Year Ever. That's where the ideas for these past 3 videos came from. It's definitely a great read. I highly recommend it. I'll go ahead and post the link to that below, so that way if you want to check it out, you can. And again, if you have any questions, you can always leave those in the comments below as well. So see you guys next week, and as always, the Oscar Tortola Group is your smart choice in real estate.